The man at her door shouldn't know her name. She divorced that name 6 months ago, moved twice since then, and kept her number unlisted. But he says it anyway, her full name, the one she stopped using, and waits like he's expected. Like she's been expecting him. Your ex-husband owes a debt. His voice is calm. Polite, even. To people who don't send reminders. She doesn't ask how he found her. She asks what happens if she closes the door. He smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. I'm the reminder. But I'm also the reason you're still standing here, asking questions instead of being asked them. He glances past her into the apartment. You have about 12 hours to decide if you want to keep it that way. She should slam the door. Call the police. Disappear again. Instead, she hears herself ask, "What do you want?" And he looks at her, really looks, like he's seeing something no one else has bothered to notice in years. That depends, he says slowly, on whether you're smart enough to let me help you. Before we dive in, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? And don't fail to like and subscribe, if you're ready to step into a world where power, obsession, and danger collide. The knock comes 3 hours after he leaves. She's still holding the business card he pressed into her palm. No name, just a phone number embossed in black. She hasn't decided whether to call it or burn it when her ex-husband's mistress stumbles through the door, bleeding from a cut above her eye. "They're coming for you next," the woman says, gripping the doorframe. "Marcus took more than money. He took product. They think you helped him hide it." She didn't even know Marcus was using again. The mistress is younger. Prettier, supposedly. The kind of woman Marcus left her for because he wanted something that made him feel powerful instead of obligated. Now that woman is shaking in her entryway, mascara streaked, begging her to run. "I don't have anything," she says. "They don't care." The mistress wipes blood from her cheek with trembling fingers. "They said they'd make an example. That it doesn't matter how old you are or how long you've been gone. You were his wife. That makes you collateral." The word sits wrong in her chest. Collateral. Like she's an asset someone else gets to spend. She's reaching for her phone when the second knock comes, heavier, deliberate. The mistress goes pale. But when she opens the door, it's him again. The man from earlier. He looks past her at the bleeding woman and exhales slowly, like he's disappointed but not surprised. "You should have called," he says. "I didn't decide yet." "Well." He steps inside without asking, closing the door behind him with the heel of his shoe. "Someone decided for you." 2 men appear in the hallway behind him, silent, expressionless. He gestures once, and they flank the mistress, who doesn't resist. Doesn't even look surprised. Like she knew this was always how it ended. He turns back to her, adjusting the cuff of his shirt. His movements are unhurried. Almost casual. "The debt's been cleared," he says. "Your ex-husband's mess is no longer your problem." She should feel relief. Instead, she feels the trap closing. "Why?" "Because I don't like waste." His gaze holds hers, steady and unreadable. "And you're not something that should be wasted." The mistress is led out. The door clicks shut. It's just the 2 of them now, standing in her small apartment that suddenly feels smaller. "What do you want in return?" she asks. He considers the question like it's more complicated than it sounds. "Nothing you're not already thinking about giving," he says finally. Then he places a second card on her counter, this one with an address. "Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Don't make me come back here again." He's gone before she can argue. She looks at the card, then at the door. 12 hours, he said. She's starting to think he never intended to give her a choice. The address leads to a restaurant she can't afford to eat at. She almost doesn't go. Spends the day telling herself she owes him nothing, that clear debts between strangers don't come without strings. But at 7:45, she's standing outside the entrance, smoothing her coat, hating that she changed clothes twice. The host doesn't ask her name, just leads her past the main dining room to a private area in the back, where he's waiting at a table set for two. He stands when she approaches. The gesture feels old-fashioned, deliberate. "You came," he says. "You didn't give me much choice." There's always a choice. He pulls out her chair. "You made yours when you walked through that door." She sits because leaving now would prove him right. Dinner arrives without her ordering. Courses she didn't choose, wine she didn't request. He eats sparingly, watching her more than his plate. She tries to match his calm, but her hands give her away, fidgeting with her napkin. "What did you do to Marcus?" she finally asks. "Nothing he didn't do to himself." That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. He sets down his fork, leaning back. "Your ex-husband made poor decisions. I corrected the consequences before they reached you. That transaction is complete." Then why am I here? The question hangs between them. He takes his time responding, like he's choosing each word carefully. "Because men like your ex-husband see women like you as expiration dates," he says. "They count years instead of value. Trade experience for novelty. Discard what they're too stupid to keep." Her throat tightens. She doesn't want his pity. "I'm not asking you to. I'm not offering pity." His voice drops, quiet but firm. "I'm telling you what I see. And what I see is someone who's been underestimated long enough to believe it herself." She doesn't know how to respond to that. Doesn't trust it. "So what happens now?" she asks. He slides an envelope across the table. She opens it. Inside is a check, enough to cover 6 months of rent, maybe more. And beneath it, a key. "The check is yours regardless," he says. "The key is an option. A property I own. Secure. Private. Safer than where you're living now. I don't need charity." It's not charity. It's insurance. He leans forward slightly. "You were targeted once. That doesn't disappear just because the debt's cleared. People remember names. Faces. They remember who was married to whom. And you're offering to protect me." "I'm offering you a choice," he corrects. "Take the money. Keep your apartment. Pretend this conversation never happened." He pauses. "Or admit you've been looking over your shoulder since last night, and let me do something about it." She looks at the key, then at him. "What do you get out of this?" His smile is slight, almost sad. "Peace of mind," he says. She doesn't believe him. But she takes the key anyway. She doesn't move into the property. Keeps the key in her purse like an insurance policy she's not ready to claim. Goes back to her apartment, her job, her carefully reconstructed routine. Tells herself the check was payment enough. That she can accept his help without accepting his terms. It takes 3 days to notice the car. Black sedan. Tinted windows. Always parked 2 spaces behind wherever she stops. She first sees it outside the grocery store, then again near the library where she works part-time. By the 4th day, she's certain. The coffee shop is her test. She sits by the window with her laptop, pretending to work. 2 men enter separately, one orders tea, the other just sits. Neither touches their drinks. Neither looks at their phones. They're watching the door, the street, and occasionally her. She's back in her apartment, pacing, when she finally uses the number from his card. He answers on the first ring. "You've been following me," she says. "Yes." No hesitation. No excuse. The honesty is almost worse than a lie. "For how long?" "Since you left the restaurant." Her hand tightens around the phone. "You said I had a choice." "You do. You chose to stay in an unsecured location. I chose to compensate for your poor risk assessment." His tone is maddeningly even. Would you prefer I stopped? Yes. No, you wouldn't. The certainty in his voice makes her want to throw something. You don't get to decide what I want. Then tell me honestly, have you slept through the night since your ex's mistress showed up bleeding? Silence. He continues, quieter now. I'm not restricting your freedom. I'm ensuring you still have it tomorrow. By stalking me? By keeping you alive. She hears him shift, like he's standing. You think the people Marcus owed just vanish because I paid them? They remember. They watch. They wait for an opening. So your solution is to become another man watching me? My solution, he says, each word deliberate, is to be the only man who needs to. Her breath catches. There's possession in that statement, wrapped in logic she can't quite argue with. I didn't ask for this. You took the money. You kept the key. His voice drops. You called me instead of the police. You've already decided what kind of protection you want. Now you're just negotiating how much it costs. She should hang up. Block the number. Move again. What do you want from me? She asks instead. The pause stretches too long. I want you to stop pretending you feel safer without me, he finally says. The line goes dead. She looks out her window. The black sedan is parked across the street, headlights off. She doesn't call back. But she doesn't close the curtains either. His name is David. She learns this from the man at the library, a regular who lingers by the front desk, asking about book recommendations he never checks out. He's friendly in a way that feels intentional, compliments her taste, mentions he's new to the city. When he asks if she'd like to get drinks after her shift, she says yes just to prove she can. They meet at a wine bar downtown. David is charming, asks questions, listens to her answers. It's been so long since someone treated a conversation with her like something worth having that she almost forgets about the sedan that followed her here. Almost. She's laughing at something he said when her phone vibrates. Unknown, you're not available. She stares at the message. Reads it twice. Everything okay? David asks. She forces a smile. Just work. But her hands are shaking when she picks up her wine glass. David insists on walking her to her car. She doesn't argue, mostly because she wants witnesses if something happens. They're saying goodnight when she notices his expression change, a flicker of recognition, then fear. Two men approach from the parking lot. Not the ones from the coffee shop. Bigger. Ms. Hayes, one of them says, not looking at David. We'll take you home. David steps back. Actually steps back, hands raised slightly like he's been trained to recognize a situation he can't win. I can drive myself, she says. That wasn't a request. David's already walking away. Doesn't run, but doesn't look back either. She watches him disappear around the corner, and something in her chest twists, not because she wanted him, but because she didn't realize how much the choosing mattered until someone took it from her. The men drive her home in silence. When she gets to her apartment, there's a package waiting. Inside, photos. David at the library. David outside her building last week, before he ever spoke to her. David with a woman who isn't her, outside a hotel. Time stamped 3 days ago. Her phone rings. She answers without checking the number. You had him followed, she says. I had everyone followed. His voice is calm. Clinical. He targeted you deliberately. Used your routine to manufacture proximity. The woman in the photo is his wife. Her stomach turns. You could have just told me that. Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was lying to keep you isolated? He pauses. Now you know what I know. That every man who approaches you will have an agenda. Some want money. Some want access. Some just want to see what it's like to touch something that belongs to someone else. I don't belong to you. Then why are you still holding the phone? She closes her eyes. Hates that she doesn't have an answer. David's in the hospital, he continues. Broken ribs. Dislocated shoulder. He'll recover. But he won't come back. You didn't have to. Yes, he interrupts, I did. The line goes dead. She looks at the photos spread across her table. And doesn't throw them away. She demands the meeting on neutral ground, a park midday, surrounded by joggers and families. He agrees without argument, which should have been her first warning. He's waiting on a bench when she arrives, dressed down in dark jeans and a sweater that makes him look almost ordinary. Almost. The two men stationed near the playground ruin the illusion. She sits, leaving space between them. This has to stop, she says. Which part? All of it. The surveillance. She struggles for the right word, interference. I'm not your responsibility. You became my responsibility the moment I cleared that debt. He's watching a child on the swings, his profile unreadable. You just haven't accepted the terms yet. There were no terms. You said the debt was paid. The debt is paid. He finally looks at her. What you're living in now is the aftermath. And the aftermath doesn't care about fairness or what you think you deserve. She wants to argue, but he reaches into his jacket and pulls out an envelope. Thicker than the last one. Before you decide I'm the villain in your story, he says, sliding it across the bench, look at what your hero was doing. Inside are more photos. Marcus, her ex-husband, outside a casino. Marcus with bags of cash. Marcus climbing into an expensive car with plates registered to a known trafficking operation. The dates span the last 2 months. He's alive, she says quietly. For now. He leans back, arms draped across the bench. Not touching her, but close enough she feels the heat. He resurfaced 2 weeks after I paid his debt. Started gambling again. Borrowed from the same people, different names. He's running the same con, and when it collapses, they'll come looking for leverage. I'm not his wife anymore. You think that matters to them? His voice hardens. You shared a name for 25 years. You know his habits, his contacts, where he'd hide if he had to run. In their eyes, you're either an asset or a liability. There's no neutral. She stares at the photos. At the man she wasted half her life on, still making the same mistakes, still leaving her to clean up the wreckage. What do you want me to do? I want you to stop pretending you have the luxury of independence. He shifts closer, just slightly. I want you to move into the property I offered. Let me handle this properly instead of improvising protection around your stubbornness. And if I refuse? Then Marcus dies badly, and you spend the rest of your life wondering if they're coming for you next. He pauses. Or you let me end this cleanly. Your choice. The word cleanly sits wrong. She knows what it means. You're asking me to sign off on killing him. I'm asking you to prioritize your survival over his consequences. He stands, buttoning his jacket. You have until tomorrow night. After that, I move forward with or without your permission. He leaves her there, holding photos of a man she once loved. She burns them in her kitchen sink that night. And starts packing. The property is a penthouse, not an apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that costs more than her car, a kitchen she doesn't know how to use. He's not there when she arrives. Just a security code texted to her phone and her belongings already unpacked in the master bedroom. Someone went through her things. Hung her clothes. Arranged her books. She's still processing the invasion when her phone rings. Unknown number. Do you like it? Not his voice. Younger. Amused. Who is this? Someone who thinks our mutual friend is making a mistake. The line crackles slightly, like he's moving. You should leave now, while you still can. The coal drops. She's dialing his number when the power cuts. The penthouse plunges into darkness. Emergency lighting flickers on, casting everything in red. She moves toward the door, then stops, remembers the security system, the locks that engage automatically during outages. She's trapped. Footsteps in the hallway outside. Not his measured pace. These are quicker, multiple sets, moving with purpose. She backs toward the bedroom, searching for anything that could be a weapon. Her hand closes around a letter opener from the desk when the door explodes inward. 3 men. Masks. One carries zip ties. "Don't make this difficult," the lead one says. She grips the letter opener tighter, knowing it's useless. They move fast, too fast. One grabs her arm, twisting until the opener clatters to the floor. They're binding her wrists when gunfire erupts from the stairwell. The men freeze, then scatter, abandoning her as bullets tear through the doorframe. She drops, hands still bound, as bodies hit the floor around her. Then silence. He steps through the smoke, gun still raised, scanning for threats. When he sees her on the floor, something crosses his face, rage so pure it's almost calm. "Are you hurt?" She shakes her head, mute. He cuts her restraints with a knife that appears from nowhere, then pulls her to her feet. His hands linger, checking her for injuries with a thoroughness that feels clinical and desperate at once. "They were here for me," she whispers. "They were here because of me." He holsters the gun. This is what happens when people think they can test boundaries. She looks at the bodies. 2 dead, one crawling toward the elevator, leaving a blood trail. He follows her gaze, then walks over and puts another bullet in the man's leg. Not killing him. Making a point. "Call the cleaners," he tells someone on his phone. Then to her, "Pack a bag. We're leaving." To where? Somewhere they can't reach you. He's already moving, expecting her to follow. She does. But as they descend the private elevator, his hand pressed against the small of her back like he's afraid she'll disappear, she realizes something that makes her stomach turn. She's not horrified by the violence. She's relieved he was capable of it. The safe house is smaller. Quieter. 1 bedroom, reinforced doors, windows that don't open. He tells her it's temporary, a few days until he handles the retaliation. She doesn't ask what that means. The first night, she can't sleep. Keeps seeing the man crawling, the blood, the coldness in his eyes when he pulled the trigger. Not guilt. Strategy. She finds him in the living room at 3 a.m., laptop open, reviewing security footage. "You should rest," he says without looking up. "So should you." "I will. When you're safe." She sits on the opposite end of the couch, pulling her knees to her chest. The space between them feels deliberate. Maintained. "How many people have you killed?" she asks. He closes the laptop. "Enough to know when it's necessary." And tonight was necessary. Tonight was inevitable. He turns to face her. "They broke into my property. Touched what's mine. There's no negotiation after that. Only consequence. I'm not a possession." "No," he agrees quietly. "You're a complication." The word stings more than it should. "Then why not just let me go? Pay them off. Give them something else. You don't owe me anything." He's silent for a long moment, and she realizes she's miscalculated. Asked a question he wasn't ready to answer. "Because I've spent 15 years in this life," he finally says, "taking what I want, keeping what's useful, discarding what isn't. And then you appeared, someone who doesn't want my money, doesn't fear my reputation, doesn't perform gratitude for basic decency." He leans forward, elbows on his knees. "You looked at me like I was a problem to solve, not a solution to accept. Do you know how rare that is?" Her breath catches. "So this is about your ego." "This is about the fact that I can't afford to want things," he says. "Want makes you weak." Want makes you vulnerable. And I looked at you and wanted anyway. The confession sits between them, heavy and dangerous. She should move away. Create distance. Instead, she stays frozen, feeling the weight of his attention like a physical thing. I can't be what you want, she whispers. You already are. He stands abruptly. Putting space between them like proximity is suddenly unbearable. Get some sleep. We leave at dawn. Where are we going? Back to the penthouse. This ends tomorrow. She watches him retreat to the single bedroom, the one he's been giving her while he sleeps on the couch. Tonight, he stops at the doorway. Lock the door, he says. Why? His jaw tightens. Because if you don't, I'm going to stop pretending I brought you here just for your protection. He closes the door before she can respond. She stares at it for a long time. Doesn't turn the lock. But doesn't open it either. Marcus is found in a motel outside the city. She learns this from the news, not from him. Apparent gang violence, the reporter says. Execution style. No witnesses. She's still watching the broadcast when he returns to the penthouse, and she knows from his face that the blood hasn't dried yet. You killed him, she says. He sets his keys on the counter, shrugs off his jacket. There's a small stain on his cuff he hasn't noticed yet. I ended a problem. He was a person. He was a liability. He pours himself 2 fingers of whiskey, drinks it in one swallow. One that would have gotten you killed within the month. I made a tactical decision. Without asking me. If I'd asked, you would have said no. Then he'd still be out there, borrowing money in your name, telling people you know where his assets are hidden. He refills the glass. You'd be dead by next week. So yes, I made the choice for you. She should be horrified. Should feel something other than this numb, creeping relief that makes her hate herself. You had no right. I had every right. He turns to face her fully. The moment you moved into my property, accepted my protection, let me put my people between you and danger, you gave me that right. You just didn't want to admit what you were agreeing to. I never agreed to murder. You agreed the night you didn't throw away those photographs. When you packed your bags without me forcing you. When you didn't lock that door. His voice drops. You've been agreeing in every silence, every choice not to run. You just needed someone else to pull the trigger so you could pretend your hands are clean. The accusation hits like a physical blow because it's true. She married Marcus at 28. Spent 25 years making herself smaller, quieter, less. Convinced herself that devotion meant erasure. And when she finally left, she swore she'd never let another man make decisions for her. But this isn't devotion. This is something darker. More honest. I should hate you, she whispers. You should. He sets down the glass, moves closer. But you don't. Because you know what I did was necessary. You know Marcus would have kept destroying everything around him until there was nothing left. And some part of you, the part you won't admit exists, is grateful. She wants to deny it. Can't. What happens now? Now you decide if you can live with what I am. He stops just close enough that she'd have to step back to break the proximity. Or if you're going to keep pretending you want something safer. Her pulse hammers against her throat. And if I leave? Then I let you go. His eyes hold hers. But we both know you won't. She doesn't step back. Doesn't step forward either. Just stands there, trapped between the woman she was and the one she's becoming. 3 weeks pass. She doesn't leave. Doesn't stay in any meaningful way either. Exists in the space between, sleeping in his guest room, eating meals he has delivered, accepting the protection she can no longer pretend to refuse. They orbit each other carefully. He works late. She reads. Sometimes they share the same room without speaking, the silence heavy with everything neither will say. Until the night she finds him on the balcony, smoking a cigarette she didn't know he kept. "I thought you didn't smoke," she says. "I don't. Except when I'm trying not to do something worse." She should go back inside. Instead, she joins him at the railing, close enough their shoulders almost touch. "They found the man who ordered the hit on the penthouse," he says. "Rival family. They're asking for a meeting. Want to negotiate terms." What kind of terms? The kind where they pretend to respect boundaries they've already crossed. He flicks ash over the edge. "They'll want proof I'm willing to compromise. That you're not worth starting a war over." Her chest tightens. "And are you? Willing to compromise?" He doesn't answer immediately. Takes another drag, exhales slowly. "I've built everything on certainty," he finally says. "Reputation. Fear. The understanding that when I draw a line, it doesn't move." He turns to look at her. "You're the first thing I've wanted more than I've wanted to be right." The confession sits in the air between them, dangerous and raw. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you've become the line." He drops the cigarette, crushes it beneath his heel. "And I don't know how to protect you without destroying everything else I've built. Or how to let you go without destroying myself." She should feel trapped. Should recognize this for what it is: obsession dressed as devotion, possession mistaken for protection. But when she looks at him, she sees the same thing she saw in the mirror this morning: someone standing at the edge of a choice they've already made, just waiting for permission to fall. "What do you want from me?" she asks. "I want you to stop asking questions you already know the answer to." He moves closer, close enough she can feel the heat from his skin. "I want you to admit you feel safer in my cage than you ever did in your freedom. That you think about me the way I think about you, constantly, dangerously, in ways that should terrify us both." Her breath catches. "And if I do? Then we stop pretending this is temporary." His hand rises, hovers near her face without touching. "And you tell me now, before I make decisions neither of us can take back, whether you're staying because you're afraid to leave, or because you don't want to." She should say she's afraid. Should use it as an exit. Instead, she closes the distance between his hand and her cheek. "I don't want to," she whispers. His control finally breaks. She thought she had control, until she realized the only choice she ever had was his. If this story left your heart racing, don't just scroll away, hit that subscribe button. Step into the world where danger, obsession, and desire collide.